I would tell him, like, I don't wanna be in this, like, old white man industry. He's like, "But don't you think that should change? Like, don't you think we could change that?" And I was like, "God damn it. Okay, yeah, of course I wanna change that." So he was extremely smart with getting me on board with, like, small societal challenge of changing an entire industry.
Hello, Who's Missing listeners. I am so excited to introduce you to Jamie Redmond. She's in my book club, if I'm being honest. Chicago's best book club, humbly named, I might add. And Jamie is the chief operating officer and partner at Redmond Construction. Yes, her last name is Redmond. The company has the name Redmond in it. I need you to listen to this episode to hear how all of that went down and to use it as an opportunity for you to think about what you want out of your work and how to get it. Jamie is going to tell you it's not necessarily about where you're working, but who you are and who you work with and how you show up. So for those of you listening who want to pull the ripcord on what you're doing because you just got to get out of there, that may be true. But it may also be that you can refine your environment to better fit what you're really passionate about. It's possible. Jamie grows over 20 types of vegetables in her Logan Square backyard. Her Twitter mantra is, let's just try matriarchy. And she is a very beloved friend and a lover of animals, big and small. Jamie is truly a Renaissance woman, and I am so excited for you to meet her today. I'm Emily Drake, and this is Who's Missing, a show about finding people who are extraordinary, not for what they do, but for how they do it. What were you doing just before this? What was your meeting?
What did I have today? I don't even know. I had a board meeting this morning for World Business Chicago.
Okay.
And then I had a meeting with the deputy mayor, Kenya Merritt, to just talk about plans for downtown and continuing to keep downtown busy and growing. And
do you have besties in other metro areas where you're the Chicago representative and they're like the San Francisco representative, and like, do you huddle up on that? Like, you know how that we're both in a book club together. Like, do you have like a future cities club that you talk to?
no, but I think that I should be in one. That sounds great. I mean,
I nominate you to head our city, Chicago. Yeah.
I think that's also kind of supposed to be part of my job as a board member. World Business is like hyping Chicago and talking about Chicago. So I'm happy to do that all day.
The question that I came to mind for me with you is like, it sounds confrontational, but I just want to ask it. It's like, what makes you qualified to be like in the city's group, right? Like repping Chicago. And that's the confrontational way to ask it. The other way I would ask it is like, tell us about you and your relationship to the city and what it means for you as Jamie Redmond, but also what it means for you as a partner and COO at Redmond Construction. Like, how does it all connect?
I mean, I think there's a lot of different ways to answer that. I'm still not entirely sure how I'm qualified to be on the board.
Great.
I just sort of shoved my way into that room and pulled up a seat at the table and was like, well, I'm here now and I'm going to be really annoying and have a lot of ideas and you're not going to like most of them. But I'd been close. I was a fellow at the organization 7 years ago. So that's how I got to know them. And I always really admired the work they were doing. And, I grew up here. I'm from here. I want to see the city thriving. I've lived in the city for a very long time. And I love seeing neighborhoods that I live in now that when my parents and grandparents were growing up, they're like, why would anybody live there? Right. So like getting to see those neighborhoods be really exciting and cool and different now. It's exciting. And I think, there's bigger conversations about affordable housing and gentrification that have to be had, but I love going to a new neighborhood in the city and seeing how vibrant it can be and people out and shopping and spending their money with independent businesses, and all of that is good for the city.
I love what you led with. This is why I said it was confrontational to be like, what qualifies you? And answered beautifully, Jamie, of like, everything qualifies me to talk about this because I can be just like a mediocre white man and not have all of the qualifications and still sit at the table and tell you what I think. And I love that, which feels very on brand for you. How other than, obviously this dossier of experience that you have, which, it speaks for itself. Um, what are some of the like intrinsic qualities that make you a person who sits at a table and says the thing? Like, how would you describe who you are?
Oh God. I mean, a lot of it's maybe what some people would classify as like obnoxious.
Uh-huh.
I've never been able to keep my mouth shut. Like if I have an opinion about something, I'm gonna share it. It might not be fully formed. It might not be like perfectly informed either, but like I really enjoy talking through problems with people and like figuring out solutions in like a really like active conversational way. So it's just in my nature to like want to pick something apart and dig into something. And I don't mind if I say something that I then like throughout the course of a conversation am told why I'm wrong and can immediately be like, oh, you're right. Thanks for telling me that. Now I know better. And like my opinion will change. Like it's not so much like coming in the room and being like, we have to do this. I just like genuinely love like getting into the weeds of problems. And so I think that's just like my natural tendency. I did make a very concerted effort the first year on the board to like not dive in with opinions. I got really good advice from a woman in my industry who's a total rock star, and I was like, "It's my first time being on a legit board. Like, I don't know what I'm doing." And she said, "Eyes and ears in, hands out." She was like, "There's a staff to execute on the work. They're the experts, and they're paid to do the work. You're there to listen and learn, and then when required, you can offer something up."
There's a lot that I love about that. There's so much responding. Oh my God. Like I think about social media just to start and it's like, why are you commenting on that? We don't need to hear. We don't need to hear it.
Right.
You can have it, but we don't need to hear it, which is what your advisor said to you. I would imagine then, as I'm thinking about the listener who is like, whoa, Jamie just kind of rolled herself into this table and now she's talking and she's really brave. Part of what we're talking about at this season is courage and being brave.
Hmm.
And I think for you, it's like that's just what I lead with. What in this experience, either on the World Business Chicago board or in your role at Redmond or your many other leadership sort of faculties, where's a time where you've felt like, oh shit, I gotta be courageous right now? And what does it look like for you?
I think in the time I've been at Redmond, I think it's coming up on 7 years. We were such a small company when I joined, and we were really able to like make big decisions within a few minutes and just go with them because the risk was so low. Like if we screwed up, there was not a lot that was going to go wrong. Probably the first like huge challenge was COVID. We were still a relatively small new company. That was the first time we were faced with something where we were like, granted, nobody knew what to do, but like we didn't have a big board of advisors. We didn't have decades of experience to navigate something really, really tricky. And even people who did were still struggling with how to navigate that. And so I think that was probably the first like real test of like, can we get it together as leaders and make tough choices, make unpopular choices,
Hmm.
be held accountable for our choices if they go poorly and if people don't respond well to them. We had a lot of projects that we didn't know if they were going to move forward or not. We got very lucky and like really only one project ended up stopping completely. And then they came back online like 2 years later and finished the work. But there were really scary conversations of like, will we have a business in 2 months? Like, will we exist in the next 2 months? We have a staff. Are we going to be able to employ them? We have trade workers coming on site and we can't get N95s. How do we maintain their safety and execute on projects? Like it felt like very real world. People are getting very sick. People could die. We don't have information and we just have to like trust our gut and go with this. And so I think that was probably the first time that I was like, oh, we're in charge and like it's on us to make these really tough calls. So huge learning experience through that, and then to come out of COVID a bigger company, more profitable, more revenue than the start of COVID. I remember us sitting down as a leadership team, probably like 2022, early 2023, when we were also deciding to open our Denver office, and we were like, "Are we actually good at this?" Like, we kind of felt like we were making it up as we were going. We might be good at this. Like, we might actually be really good at this. And that was the first time that we were like, "Oh shit! Like, we're running a legitimate business, and like we made the right calls, and like we took big risks, and we made the right calls." So it was very validating. um, I think now, like on the sort of other side of it is like we're walking into a really tough first half of the year, probably the hardest market that we've really seen. Because during COVID, there was PPP money and there was a structure in place. And we were smaller. So we weren't burning as much cash just to survive month to month back then. We just had a lot more flexibility. When we walk into a really tough market like 2024, and I look at our operating budget and what it costs us to function month to month, those numbers get really, really scary.
I know.
So I think we're in that moment right now where we're like, okay, we have a really strong second half of the year and 2025 like booked, but we're looking at a few months that are going to be really tricky to manage. Last year we did almost 100 million in revenue. Those are big dollars to be responsible for now.
Yeah.
And like no one on our leadership team has a business degree, right? We're still Googling shit. And we did 100 million in revenue last year and I Googled a lot.
Yeah.
So that's requiring some courage right now to be like, you are in charge of this and you have to make it work.
Yeah, your response. I hear that in what you're talking about. There's a level of like, I'm so proud of us, and also like a little surprised by us. And then also like, oh shit, we brought a lot of people along with us, and now we're responsible. And I think about like our relationship to money just in general and being a steward of money. I've learned this in business too. Like you have good years and you have other years. And how do you kind of prepare to the best of your ability? It feels like maybe at Redmond Construction right now, the risks that you would take would be different than they were years ago.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, years ago, we also just like didn't have the tools to even forecast the way that we are now, right? Like we were working off of really basic technology and dealing with much smaller numbers. Now, like I have a full-time finance person on my team, which that role didn't even exist a couple of years ago. And I'm probably talking to him and our CPA and our banker more now in a week than I would in months in the past because there's just so much more money moving around. And the tools that he's put in place and built for us allow us to forecast so much better and so much more accurately, and learning how to manage cash and investments, and how we're now a real company that's not just like, here's an operating account, money in, money out, move it from one point to the other. Like we have to think about long-term strategy now. And that's all really new for us.
Yeah. I think we're clear now on like, how did Jamie decide to join a board? Because I think that metacognition of like, how did you make these decisions is really cool for people to hear about. How did you decide to join Redmond Construction? And it should be noted, your last name is Redmond,
Correct.
right? That might have had something to do with it, but there's a couple things there that I think are really cool. I'm imagining a listener being like, she's so inspiring. How did this all happen? So let me just stick with that. How did you decide to join Redmond Construction?
It took a while for me to make that
Mhm.
choice. So my brother started the company almost 11 years ago, and we grew up in the trades. Our dad was union carpenter. My brother went the trade route instead of college. He was working as a carpenter and working with my dad, primarily in like the residential world at the time. As you can imagine, 08, 09 recession was extremely difficult. And so when my brother was starting this company, I don't know that he knew how big it was going to be. Like it was never his intention to be like, I'm starting a big company. He just had opportunities coming his way that he wanted to chase. And he was 23, and the right amount of ambitious and naive and hardworking and smart and charismatic and just like went after these opportunities and was really, really savvy with building a business around that. When he approached me to join, it was probably like fall of 2016-ish, and I had been working in a completely different industry. I'd come out of grad school and was basically like, I'm going to save the world. Like, I'm going to work on progressive policy and I want to work with nonprofits and I want to do everything that is important to me. But like very quickly was realizing I was never going to get paid to do any of that and was like, oh, I have to make rent and pay my student loans. So like, I need to find a job that pays me. And I'd been working at a really great agency at the time where I got to have all of those folks as my clients, but I was at an agency where I was helping them with their comms and their strategy and their content. So there was like an actual paycheck involved. And my brother had approached me, and at first I was really hesitant. I just thought of like the world that my dad was in, and I was like, it's really old and sexist, and there's a lot of misogyny, and there's certainly racism, and there's just a lot that like I was like, I don't want to be in this like old white man world when I'm working in this space where I really care about the issues at hand. And my brother kept being like, I promise it's not like that. It's like, we're young, we're cool, we have cool clients. Like Pinterest was his client at the time. He was doing all these really cool spaces for these young tech companies. And he's like, it's different. And it took a while. It took several months of us going back and forth. I was like, what would I even do? Like, what would my job be? We went back and forth for a while. I agreed to join. And I think the way that I put it to him, and he was also really smart and knew exactly how to push my buttons. I would tell him, like, I don't want to be in this like old white man industry. He's like, but don't you think that should change? Like, don't you think we could change that? And I was like,
Ugh.
God damn it. Okay. Yeah, of course I want to change that. So he was extremely smart with getting me on board with like, oh, just, small societal challenge of changing an entire industry.
You know.
When we finally were like, okay, let's do this, I was like, I want to be able to be in charge of hiring and like what that looks like. And I want to have a slush fund of money that I can give away as a company to the stuff that I care about. So I feel like I'm not walking away from all these things that I care about. And so that was almost 7 years ago. And half of our project team is female, which I don't know if there's any other GC in the city that can say that. A third of our leadership team is female. 80% of my team, the operating team, is female. We work with amazing subcontractors where we're able to get lots of WBMB participation from our subs. We really worked hard to build that pipeline. We've built our internship and entry level pipeline so that they're like very targeted towards women and people of color, especially from neighborhoods that have had a lot of disinvestment. So we've worked really hard to build up, like from job number one to the top, to build that pipeline in. And so for me, that was the thing that I came in caring the most about. Like I would joke, like I don't care about construction. I care about changing this piece of the industry and making this company a place where women and people of color really want to work and feel like they can succeed.
Yeah.
And obviously I like the construction side of it too. And I love the product that we put out for our clients. But watching the cultural shift within the industry has been really fun because we're not the only ones doing it. There are tons of companies who have those same goals. And my view is always like, it's a net gain if we're all helping each other get there. Like if we're hiring a bunch of women and other companies are seeing like, wow, Redmond's attracting great talent, companies want to work with them because their teams look representative of the client. And that means my competitors are going to go out and try to hire more women. I'm like, that's a net gain for everybody. Like I'm happy with that. I love seeing that cultural shift happen. And we certainly didn't come up with it. I think because we're younger and smaller and more agile, we were able to put the changes in place faster and maybe with a little more impact up front because we didn't have like multi-generational company culture to change.
Right. Right. And there's this piece about like, I think I'll just say this. I experience with a lot of the clients that I work with, they've made this progression in their career. And I say all the time, they're kind of on a ladder climbing and up against the wrong wall. Like it just sort of doesn't make sense. And what I hear eventually, they're up there and they've become SVP and they look around and they're like, how did I get here? I don't even want to be doing this anymore. So I feel like what your brother did was give you like that moment of reflection and challenge this thought that like you can't work on gender equity in a construction company, right? Or wherever you
Mhm.
are. And I think part of what you're inviting is for listeners to think about, like, well, how can you bring what you care about into your workplace? And if you can't, maybe it's the wrong workplace.
Right.
I mean, I don't know that it's that simple, right? Because of course there's a lot of decisions to make in between now and then, but yeah, that there's ways to be more of who you are potentially where you work. Potentially.
Right. And like at good companies with good culture, you should be able to show up as yourself, and there should just be intrinsic value in you being authentically yourself in any place that you are. You're better off when you're actually listening to people from different backgrounds who have different perspectives, and you're learning from them, and it will make you stronger as a team. I think all the data shows that companies with more diversity, gender diversity, ethnic diversity, whatever it is, they outperform their peers who don't have those same core values and haven't been pushing for those changes.
Well, and just to like really toot a horn here, in the past 5 years, y'all have increased revenue by, I mean, four digits, 1200% or something.
Yeah. It's
So there you have it.
Emily's adventure with Jamie Redmond will continue after a short break.
Jamie's spotlight this week is on Chicago's Center on Halsted. Its mission is to secure health and well being for the LGBTQ community.
just given the sort of tendency towards cruelty and violence towards the LGBTQ community that's happening, especially right now. Their work is super important. They have everything from job training and internship programs to mental health interventions, healthcare services. And I'm just a huge fan of the work that they do and the people who work there. So I want to shout them out and tell people to support them however they can.
And did you know its vision goes back to the Gay Horizons support group that formed in 1973? Center on Halsted opened its building in 2007. If you want to visit centeronhalsted.org, you can learn more about their history and support their mission. Thinking about changing the workplace, changing culture to help women in particular claim their rightful place. What else are you working on changing from where you sit now? What do you see that is maybe the next what's the not the next frontier, but like the next thing that needs some rebuilding or reimagining?
That's a really good question. I think there's probably two different things that we're looking at that like I'm really focused on right now. On one side, it's like purely from a revenue and business standpoint, we have to diversify. Like we've spent 10 years getting really, really good at executing on corporate build outs in Chicago. And we have other work in our portfolio, but it's not work that people know that we do, right? Like we haven't marketed it as much. But the reality is, like, yes, we grew at a huge rate. We're very good at what we're doing and the service we're providing, but the market has changed and it's pretty hard to sustain $100 million a year revenues on Chicago office market. Like there are a lot of amazing general contractors in the space. Our competition is really tough. They're all very good at what they do. There's just not enough to go around for everyone to have years like that year over year over year. So we have to diversify. And we have people on our team who have such amazing experience outside of corporate office, and we want them to be able to flex those muscles and like show that off. So our Denver office was super strategic. We are doing a lot more lab, life science, healthcare, higher ed work that office is really spearheading. We're looking at different market sectors right now to just really think about like, okay, we have all this amazing talent on our team. Let's let them show that off. Like, let's support them in taking on these different project types that people don't always think of us for, but that we're completely capable of doing. And we have this great talent to execute on it. So, like, that's purely from a business perspective. Like, how do we diversify? How do we get more mature, more sophisticated as a company so that we can sustain for 10 more years? And then I think internally, we've also like had to grow up and get more sophisticated. Like the mindset that we really want the whole team to adopt this year and going forward is like a team only, right? Like you want to be part of a winning team. We all want to be part of a winning team. That means top performers all the time.
Yeah, I work with a number of like high achieving type A team companies. And I find that a lot of the conversations culturally around, mental health and emotional health and wellness can be biased toward it will mean you can't be high achieving and on the A team to take care of your mental and emotional health. And that's just not true for everybody.
No, not at all.
Achieving is not a bad word. And so I'm very careful. Of course, we all achieve in our various ways, but I think what you said about your approach makes it so that your way of working is sustainable because you're going to have the right people for a duration of time that are meant to be there,
Mm-hmm.
and that's kind of wild thinking about. And I could talk to you for approximately 4 more hours. I know we've got just a few minutes left, but I think that that's a really interesting way to look at when I ask the question, like, what's the next frontier? And the Jamie of 10 years ago would have said sustainability. And I think the Jamie of today says sustainability, but maybe from a different lens, right? Does that track for you?
Yeah, I think it's like the conversations we keep having internally is like, we don't need to be bigger. We have to be stronger. We need to figure out how to be executing at the highest level we can, or giving our clients the best possible service experience we can. We need to be striving for better, bigger margins internally and better profit. Like that shouldn't be something that we shy away from. And as a team, we should be saying, like, this is what it takes. And the stronger we are, the more sustainable we'll be in the long run. And it doesn't mean burnout, right? Like, we do not want burnout. If you've got a really, really strong team that can handle anything you throw at them, you're not going to face burnout. You're going to have people who are great at managing their time, great at expectation setting, great at delivering on the product they need to deliver on, also capable of saying no when it's not the right project for them. Like, I'm not asking people to sit in the office for 80 hours a week and torture themselves to get something done. I want people who can set realistic expectations and boundaries and then execute on what they said they could do. And they deserve that from leadership also. So like, it's not about pushing people to their limit to burnout. It's about getting everybody bought into the idea that like it takes hard work, but it like the outcome is worth it. And we also get to say no to work we don't want to do if we're stronger and taking on better value projects.
Well, here's what I imagine. You're running really fast and then you have to make a decision. And it's like, how are you going to do that at 200 miles an hour?
Yeah. Like part of our sort of like growing up, getting more sophisticated journey is actually being confident in saying no to work, right? Like being able to say that is not the right fit. And we didn't have that luxury even 5 years ago, even 3 years ago, right? And that's a really hard place to get to because it's against all the things that got us here to then step back and go like, no, actually, we don't want that project.
What's something you've said no to lately that felt hard, potentially, but right?
I'm so bad about that. Like I say yes to like so much stuff that people ask me to do, and then I am so tired afterwards.
And this is important for listeners to know. The shit's hard. And it's not perfect.
I'm trying to think of something I've said no to. Does dating count?
Yeah. So how has that looked?
Yeah, I think that's an easy one. That's an easy no. Like first red flag, no, move on.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would give that advice to anybody out there. If within 15 minutes of meeting somebody, your gut is like, just get out of there, fake a phone call, leave.
Great. Have you been on any memorable dates for good reason lately or no?
I mean, nothing's been bad.
Yeah.
Nothing like so memorable that I'm like, wow, I can't wait to see them again, which sounds really mean.
Are there any restaurants you want to go back to or like experiences you want to have with someone you like more that you've had?
Um, okay, so I went with my best friend to this, but Maxwell's Trading in the West Loop.
Okay.
It's amazing. Like I would go there with a date. It
Great.
is so, so good. Definitely go there. Trying to think of like where else recently that I've been to that's been really good.
I know you love Gibson's.
Yeah.
And
The Gibson.
I only know that. Look, Jamie has a private IG, so don't even try and follow her there. But I get, because we're in the same book club, I got to meet her and I get to be friends with her. And I love your content. It's so great. And it makes me smile. And there's like so many facets to you. There's so many facets to you. And I feel like that is sort of the invitation to anyone is like find the people, right? That you can show all those facets to. And hopefully it's where you work. Hopefully, right?
Yeah. So Gibson's Italia, I will
Yeah.
always plug them because I love them. If you go during the day, I'm not saying like 11 a.m., but if you're doing like a late lunch kind of thing, Christy, the bartender at Gibson's Italia on the second floor bar, is the best. I was
Oh,
traveling a lot last summer and I hadn't been in like, I don't know, a month. And I came in for drinks and she was like, honey, I've been worried about you. Where have you been?
I love that.
Sorry, I was just traveling a lot. It's always consistently good. Everybody who works there is so friendly and lovely. I happen to go to Italia because it's closer to the office. Also love a classic Gibson's on Rush. So
Talk about the A team, Gibson's, right? I mean, no joke. All right. I know you're really into music. We had a good exchange about how do you say his name? Noah Kahan? Kahan?
oh yeah. Yeah, because my Spotify basically thinks I should live in Burlington, Vermont because I listen to sad cowgirl music only. Like, why am I only listening to like sad boys with acoustic guitar?
You're not the only one. We love sad boys.
Oh god. See, these are the facets. It's like I want dirty martinis at Gibson's and a sad boy.
And like 200 million in revenue and like, maybe another cat.
maybe
Yeah.
a jet. I don't know.
She's got diverse taste, y'all. Well, look, I am so grateful you joined us. I just see you at a lot of podiums, in the future and now, if you want to be. I think your message around this is what I need, and it can look in any different format, but these are like my non-negotiables.
Mhm.
That's how I want everyone to feel like they can move through life. And so thank you for sharing that with listeners today. And is there anything you want to give our listeners permission to do? You seem like a really brave person, and I just feel like some people might be needing to hear permission that they have.
Yes, I would say like for me, these are like non-negotiables that I do on a regular basis. Be like a little bit reckless and unhinged with your friends whenever you can. And then take the next day off completely and just like rot in bed all day. Like I try to do that at least once a month. And like Emily Ackler and plenty of people that we know in common will be on the receiving end of that text on a Friday being like, let's go. Like I'm putting on makeup and cute clothes and we are going out to beauty bar until they close. And
Oh,
then guess what? I'm sitting in a dark room all day the next day watching PBS and like with my phone off and eating takeout. Like, just do, why wouldn't you do that? Why wouldn't you like blow off steam and have the best time with friends and act really silly and just like laugh and enjoy yourself and then sleep all day the next day? Like, nobody has the stamina to do what we do all day, every day. If they say they do that, they're lying.
be sure to follow us wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you feel like going a little bit extra, leave us a rating and a review. That's how other people discover Who's Missing. We're on all the socials at Who's Missing Podcast. Plus, we have reels and shorts for you on Instagram and YouTube, a little behind the scenes about how we think and play.
So, like, have a bed rotting day as often as you can and like clear your calendar and turn your phone off.
On that note, Let me look at my calendar really quick. Like, what can I do that?
I'm like, no, like my friends will be like, do you want to hang out Sunday? I'm like, no, I'm rotting. I'm sorry.
I love it.